I'm on both sides. So,
All right, so thank you everyone for taking time and being here today. So, welcome to this interactive session. I want to emphasize that this is interactive and it's not a one-way thing that we're going to be doing. So, interactive session with HICIA. HICIA is Hyderabad Software Entrepreneur Enterprises Association. To just familiarize and socialize what HICIA is all about also. We basically work for the betterment of IT industry. And that is how we could think about how we can bring the startups and the mid and the large organizations together and create a platform for all of them to come together and work. So that has been the major intent behind this. I have the privilege of introducing the speakers of the day. My name is Shanti Devilapalli. I'm the Associate Director for Innovation Initiatives with HICIA. So I don't want to go wrong, so I made my notes about the speakers because they're all people with a lot of experience on their shoulders. So I want to introduce with Sesha Rao first. Sesha, he's the Executive Director, HICIA. He has the experience of nurturing and mentoring a couple of startups. And now he's with HICIA with his industry and startup experience. And
academia, you forgot.
yeah, academia, right. In between, right, yes. Now he's with HICIA, and who else can be in a best spot than him to talk about what strategies and interventions that HICIA can bring to table that can actually benefit both startups and also the other enterprises. We have Bipin Pendyala. Bipin.
Hi everyone.
He is the COO and CHRO of Invenio LSI. He has held a lot of leadership roles and also been on the board for several organizations. I mean, he has a you should actually go to his LinkedIn profile, and he tells about all his experiences with stories you will remember better. And he's an entrepreneur himself. So that is how we felt that he's the right person to talk to you all. Bipin will be presenting the value proposition of networking for the benefit of startups. Why should startups start looking at networking? That is what Bipin is going to be emphasizing on. Jignesh Talasila. Jignesh is the co-founder and CEO of Loop Reality. He has also co-founded multiple enterprises, and he has begun his entrepreneurial journey with HICIA. I take pride in saying that. And he will talk about his experiences, how he has benefited partnering with the mid and the large organizations. I have Balaji Kalyapan. Balaji here. He is Head of Innovation and Engineering Director at Carrier. He leads commercial and customer collaboration, and he's the right person to be here. He leads customer and commercial collaboration, and is also responsible for open innovation ecosystem partnerships. So he works with T-Hub, TIE, NASCOM, and brings in industry, institution, research partnerships for IP as well. He's from Carrier. We also have Aditya Rao. Aditya Rao is platform engineering at ServiceNow. I have quite a few interesting things to tell about Aditya. He is a global engineering leader for the platform workflow and other platform logic suite of products. He is a techie, he is by hobby, and he still continues to code, and he loves programming, and he is also actively volunteering with IEEE, the Computer Society. So with that, Balaji and Aditya will be talking about their enterprises and what kind of a work that they are doing so that startups can look up for mutual opportunities to collaborate. Sesha, over to you. I hope I haven't taken much time.
No, no,
Thank
no.
you.
Thank you so much. So thanks a lot to all of you to have taken your time off busy day to grace this occasion and then listen to what the experts are going to say. So I'm assuming all of you are startups and entrepreneurs, right? So I would like to understand what are the expectations that you have to get out of this panel discussion. Well, what are you expecting? What are you expecting to get benefited of?
So for the past one and a half year, we have been reaching out to a lot of medium to large enterprises here in India to sell our products. We are hitting a wall, so we are interested to know how we can basically overcome
Break
it or break it. So that's certainly a challenge. And second thing is, even if we break it to magically at some level, it is taking a hell of a lot of time, a lot of cycles. Normally, I remember the first customer we signed, it took us 8 months. And the second one took almost 3 months. So it's taking a lot of time. For a startup like us, that is like a death. So is there any way we can bring that cycle down to a more reasonable level? And if it can be done, how it can be done is something we are looking forward to.
Sure. I think the experts will certainly give you some answers to others.
Yeah, almost the same. We were able to crack HUL long back, but after that, I mean, we didn't know where to start, where to go. I mean, we had multiple failures of false starts and all that. So I just want to learn now what are the best practices. I mean, at least if you are spending time, even if it takes time, we are moving in the right direction. So I just wanted that clarity.
Yep, excellent. Others?
There is a there is somewhat disconnect of advice when you look at a US based, let's say, incubator like a Y Combinator, and when you see in India. So where the US based companies, they are like make something useful, make something small, people will use it. Here we don't, like, you make something small, everybody treats it as a toy. That's been our experience, at least. Your views on whether this kind of an approach will work in India, because most of us are starting out here. We want to obviously expand and all that, but and I come from an experience of software sales in large enterprises, so I'm asking this question: Does the Indian market kind of accept this? Is it even a viable thing to do, or is there a better way to approach it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm here to understand by large what sort of pain points which cross industries are going through actually. Because as a startup, we would love to hear the pain points so that we work out a solution to that.
Wonderful.
I'll start with saying that we don't make solutions for corporates, but at the same time we do coding kits for underserved students. I teach coding without computers. Incidentally, HICIA was the first one who gave us a Best Software Product Award a couple of years back. Post that, we won several awards, including one from Massachusetts Institute of Technology as well. Here, we have to see how corporates can help us take this product through their CSR funding or support to more districts than we are already doing. Our solution is kind of reaching to the central government to see if that can be incorporated as part of the national curriculum. So
Very good. Okay. Anyone
Maybe
else?
one more,
Yeah.
last one. I think pretty much everything has been covered, but then we'd also like to understand the criteria of how you evaluate. I'm sure you'll be bombarded with a lot of startups reaching out to you, but if there is a certain criteria, what are the points that you evaluate out of a particular software? Does it go in as a POC, or is there a more scope of
You
getting?
mean how corporates or
Corporates
potential
evaluate,
customers
yeah,
will
yeah.
evaluate? Great. Very nice. I'm sure most of these questions can be answered by our experts. So what we have done is to be able to address this topic, we have chosen a combination of successful entrepreneurs who are having small companies like yours and large representation of large enterprises. Aditya and Balaji are from large enterprises, and Jignesh, of course, you all know, and Bipin is very well known in the industry. So I think it's like jugalbandi, right? You have large corporates and small startups, how they can benefit from each other. So that's the topic, and as Shanti mentioned, who will be talking about who will be talking about what. So Jignesh, as you know, he has an immersive assessments VR-based hiring. I think he's on his way for the metaverse.
I think we stepped out of metaverse now.
You did. Okay, so he brings a lot of experience, and so are others. What I'm thinking is that to make it more interactive, I will let each of the speakers speak few minutes. They all have their viewpoints on what you just are expecting. So I'll let Jignesh and Balaji to speak about their views on this topic for let's say 5 or 6 minutes. And then after that, I'll ask you guys to ask questions. Then same thing we will do with the two other gentlemen. And after that, I'll talk a little bit about HICIA. So that's the format of this program. Do you guys, and after that, we can again open up the floor for all the questions. Does it make it enough interactive for you? Okay. So I would start with Jignesh. Jignesh, with your experience, why don't you please your views? I'll time box it also for you.
Absolutely. So most of the questions that are common I saw here were going to market, the GTM, especially with the large and medium enterprises. So I'm in the same space. I'm figuring it out myself, but I think I fairly understood the nuts and bolts at the moment. So I might want to share those aspects, along with how HICIA might have been a part of this journey for me as well. So I started working with HICIA as a volunteer back in 2014. So I know the networking part, so I know all of them for almost last 6-7 years. But they don't know me as a startup founder, they know me as a volunteer young person working in the field and etc. So with that experience, whenever I have a doubt, a question or something to reach out to, I have some people on my phone, I can always call, I can say, hey, I want to talk to you, can you connect me to someone else in the market, this and that and etc. So this is more of the networking side. But rather than that, I would love to focus on the GTM side of it. So I was just coming back from the SaaS Boomi Caravan event happened in the US. And along with that, I also had a chance to attend the SaaSter HR Tech conference and a bunch of others in the US. So there, a lot of learnings, I came back with a lot of learnings as of now. So the top aspect that we need to look at on the enterprise sales is, one, how do we enable our sales team members? So big learning, there's a term called sales enablement. What we do is, as founders, we do well, we sell well. But if it is taking so long for us to sell, what about someone else to sell in our team? And it might take a lot more time for them. Now, are we providing the right materials, etc., etc.? Are we getting that flywheel on so that they can do it themselves? So all of this was the first part. But then there I realized there's a need for coaching as founders itself for us. So those founders who I spoke to in the US, who got a couple of exits and are not trying to do the next one, they go through a lot of coaching. They spend $50,000 a year just getting the coaching of how to get the startup on the price. So that is something that we're missing here, because we have never been there. Those who have been there and done that, from their point of view, they can look at us and say, hey, you know what? Can you answer me this question? Can you tell me where are you right now? Is it the right path? So the moment someone asks us question nakedly, that's when we would know, yes, now we need to work on this. So these are some of the learnings that I came back with, and in fact, I'm going to propose it to the HICIA team. Why don't we open up a coach or an enterprise coach who have been there in a leadership position at a large or medium enterprise, who can take on 1 or 2 startup founders, maybe spend 1 hour or 2 or over a week, and spend that time to actually nurture us towards that position. So when a person has been there, done that, asks you the question, that itself is good enough. In fact, Bipin was talking about this earlier. So the moment you ask those right questions, I think we know what to do from there on. That's point number 1. Now point number 2, someone asked about direction. Are we in the right direction? So this is something for us, almost it took us 6 years to figure out, are we in the right direction? But now last quarter we closed at around $100,000 revenue, just in India. That means Indian companies, large and medium enterprises, are willing to pay. My biggest customer in India right now is $50,000 customer. I have half of the revenue coming from Tata Group companies. So that means there is definitely that inclination towards innovation, willing to pay that extra buck, and we are the premium in the market from all our competitors. So they're still willing to pay that, sign that multi-year contracts with us, but it took us time to figure out what to be presented. How do we demonstrate value? And once that is figured out, now we know how we can scale it up and replicate this part. So these are some things, in fact, I would always love to share with you independently as well. But from HICIA's perspective, this coaching aspect is number 1. And number 2, networking aspect. So that when you want to talk to someone, you need that introduction. In fact, 2 years ago when I was part of ICIA, I was talking to one of the secretaries of ICIA and asked him, hey, can you introduce me to First Source? So immediate introduction happened. Business is not in their hands, but introductions can happen. Then I had an opportunity to talk, understand what is that they are looking for, what is the gap, and how can we bridge that gap. Now today we could build that product. It took us almost 2 years to get there. But the point is that helped me actually get where I am today. So these are some of those aspects. Now last point that I would like to touch here is, I worked with Balaji almost 4 years ago. Now back in the day, what we were doing is very fancy stuff. So he was super excited about what we were doing. His team was super excited about what we were doing. But unfortunately, we couldn't go forward. Sometimes it is timing. Everyone loves it. Everyone wants to do it. But maybe it is not the right time for what we are doing at that moment. So how do we navigate through the process is something else that we need to figure out. I think that's where I would leave it to Balaji to take it from there and pass it on in terms of how can we do that.
Sure. Thanks, Jignesh, and I'm passing it back. I heard 2 points, right? One is, I will connect the story, where we got engaged and then what happened, as well. And definitely there will be a good learning for both corporates as well as the startups. Working with the corporates, right? The process sometimes is longer or unknown. What really happens? You reach a POC. Beyond that, what? How do you crack? And then also the evaluation criteria. What all we look at. Touching upon maybe where we left, right? See, from a corporate standpoint, right? We are Carrier. I think we were one of the early corporate doing quite a few accelerator programs in Hyderabad, working with the several ecosystems. But we got a little slow path for the last couple of years because we, as a company, we were United Technologies. We were splitting into 3 different companies. We were going through that phase in the last 2 years, and then we are back in the game, back on the floor with respect to innovation. We never look at technology as the focus areas. I think in a Carrier as a company, if I talk about, hey, what is our strategic focus area, we are focused on healthy, safe, secure, and intelligent building solutions and the cold chain solutions. That's our strategy. Whatever gets inside the building, how do you make it more healthy, safe, and secure for the building users and occupant? And the same is with respect to the cold chain, whether it is pharma or food products. When we look at a startup, we always look at, hey, what is the problem this startup is going to solve. As a company, we look at the criteria wise or the approach wise, right? 2 different aspects with respect to early stage startups as well as the mature startups, right? When it comes to the mature startups, our priority is pretty simple. What is the kind of addressable market or market opportunity this startup is now going to expand, right? Because as a corporates are matured in terms of doing a planning exercise, hey, what is it the different products and what is the addressable market today? When we look at a Series B kind of startup, that's our highest focus this year. What is it? Increasing the addressable market or market opportunity for the company. That will become the fundamental aspect for us. So the next question comes is, hey, maybe still the the same addressable market. Is it solving a problem which is not solved by industry, or we are finding it difficult to solve ourselves? It may take a longer time, and that's one aspect we look at. But it's all with respect to the addressable market, right? And then it will help us retaining the addressable market or the market opportunity for us. And that is the second criteria.
So Balaji, a quick question there. So how do we know what is a corporate looking at? Is there a way to Google it somewhere? Is there a way to look at the website or talk to someone, get that insight, that core insight?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to search in Google and find out all these points, right? Because the strategy focus area, addressable market is all will become a confidential information. And to a large extent, I will never say corporates were always right with respect to dealing with the corporates, startups, and the startups were always lagging or something. Sometimes we also go through that learning. The example which Jignesh took up, right? We were super excited about the startup, and even the within the company there was a lot of interest. Hey, that's going to add a lot of value. But when it comes to the prioritization, right? Hey, is that the problem we want to solve now, or something else is going to bring us more opportunity? That that's where it gets kind of in a backseat. Though we did a very early POCs and a pilot deployment, whether it is in AR, VR, or in a blockchain or in a drone, It was not relevant at that time, but we took an early step in the POC. That's where it gets stopped. Sometimes, right, somebody was talking about, hey, we did a POC, we don't know what next. But it is important to keep, talking to the person and to the right person, right? That's where the ongoing conversation or connect, and then retaining that networking, will become very important, especially with respect to the startup, because it was not relevant at that time, or a priority at that time, but it will become relevant a little later on. The drone POC we did was, we demonstrated in Hyderabad, transporting a pharma produce, vaccines, vials, to a remote, location, monitoring the temperature and everything. That was like before pandemic, like 9 months before the pandemic. But it was like, at that time it was not at all relevant, though we were talking to our customers. But the moment pandemic, that was the best, POC, the whole company was talking about, hey, we did very, very proactively. And we didn't know that that's going to come up, right? Sometimes we play that kind of, cards in terms of, hey, we know that's going to be relevant, but we don't know when it is going to be really useful for us as a company to pursue it as an opportunity. But that was like a huge opportunity we pursue. But it's important to keep the conversations on, because with respect to corporate, right, internally there will be a lot of process lag, and the delays will be there, because it's not like process delay. It's all about debating on what's the real true value we are going to be gaining out of this engagement. We have multiple factors in which we evaluated in a startup, right? Do we want to really do an M&A, right? If it is like a core, some technology, and which is like in a mature state, Series B, and then we feel like hey, we don't want that to be outside, we'll go for an M&A. We also play in equity investment and participation as well, across the globe, not just in India, right? And there are like 3 startups we invested this year, just as an equity play, which to a joint development on some disruptive technologies, in the core fundamental engineering, on the HVAC and the refrigeration technologies. And then we have done that through the CVC arm. And then we also do joint go-to-market, right? There we were, as a corporate, we were learning. In the last few years, or 4 years, we have identified a lot of startups and worked with at least several startups in taking and doing a POC, took it to the customer side, and then because the market and customer application learning is a big experience for the startups. But in the process, what we missed out was we didn't have any terms dictated or defined for the startup and then the corporate. So some of the startups gained the value because of that engagement. But today, as a company, we are also looking at, hey, let's have some kind of engagement through warrants, right? So the perceived value we are adding, if you really add the value, how do we monetize that as well? I'm just transparently bringing all these points, because this is how corporates think. Any value we add, it has to be a value to the corporate as well. Then only then the journey will go through long term, and then it will become a value add to the startup as well in the journey. That's what I want to say.
I think it's an excellent topic for this conversation. I would like to hear your views, because you have done a lot of
absolutely.
such.
So I kind of concur with. There is no laundry list essentially, where let's say I want to focus on M&A, because I come from a very large corporate, $100 billion. We have acquired a lot of companies, but there are 2 components that we are super focused on, right? One is, how did this particular startup, I was talking to Bipin also and others also here, where how did they move from the MVP to a product? What is it? Because taking something to an actual product, because we are a product, pure play product company, right? The MVP to a product journey, what was that essentially? That's part A. Part B is, technology is also very important, because we are such a large organization. And TAM is also very important. Does it really increase our, is this technology or is this product space really going to help us expand our TAM, right? But beyond that, our philosophy generally has been, can we organically re-platform into us? When we are doing a M&A strategy. So that's essentially what we are looking at as a company. What is the MVP to productization strategy? Have they been ruthlessly customer focused, which I'm sure most of the startups are focused on? How well have they done that journey? And is it organically absorbable, so that we can re-platform it into our own organization? So that has been a core approach that the company has taken in some of our focus areas.
So are you saying that the startups have to align their product based on your product?
Not
offering?
necessarily. What I'm saying is how the journey to an MVP to a product, and essentially how well-rounded the product is, essentially. But again, one important aspect is if M&A is an exit strategy in general, I think it would be totally helpful to be aligned to the technology outcomes of the larger organization, because that is something that we have super struggled with. There may be like 7 to 8 large startups, very reasonably matured organization which we are looking at. But as a platform engineering leader, that I get to evaluate these companies. But for me, how well can I blend it into my organization's outcome is very important. So I don't think it would hurt if M&A is an exit strategy to align to the technical outcomes of the company. So technology is very hard and important, critical piece, I would say.
Bipin, in your experience, you have done you have some success stories. Maybe you should share in this context.
Sure.
We'll open up the floor for questions a little later. I was thinking we'll open it up, but we'll do it after completing all the floor.
So a couple of thoughts I was just mulling over based on what I heard earlier, right? So to the best of my knowledge, I don't think there's anybody in the world other than Steve Jobs who's actually gone on record and said that customer does not know what he wants. Let me decide.
Totally agree.
He is the only one in this entire world that I've known.
Yes.
Right? Otherwise, as a startup entrepreneur and a startup company, or even an established company, it's very, very important for us to understand who is my customer and what am I giving the customer. So many years back, I was in services space, and we had multiple customers. I used to travel to US very often, and every time before I went to the US for QBR's conversations, I did a reasonable amount of homework about my customer. At one point of time, HP Palm, which was a smartphone, it's no more there. At one point, there was a world's leading smartphone, right? So they had done a launch, and actually they were getting pretty poor feedback from analysts. At the dinner meeting, I was talking about what was going wrong, why it went wrong, what can be done. It translated into a multi-million-dollar deal that the EVP signed with me based on a dinner conversation, because he felt I understood the problem that he had. A lot of time what happens with startup entrepreneurs, and I've been a startup entrepreneur, so I don't mean to be any disrespectful to any of you people. The challenge that we have is that we fall deeply, passionately in love with our product or our service or our solution. We fall so much in love, it's like a teenager falling in first love.
Yeah.
The most beautiful partner in the world. The rest of the world doesn't matter. And we forget about who it is, right? So, frankly speaking, when I was in college as well, I thought if I fall in love, what do I do? Fortunately for me, what are my parents or whatever, some grounding, said, oh, first I'll have to talk to the parents and get them to convince before I can ask the girl to marry me. So that's an example I would say we should bring to our entrepreneurial life as well. If you're selling to somebody, whom are you selling? Who's your stakeholder? Again, if you don't mind, can I use your company as an example just to illustrate? Now, for example, he is building a product, in an AI-based product for conducting interviews. Now, traditionally, who's your stakeholder? HR? Is it true?
It's actually the hiring manager that we target.
Again, is it true? You don't know. What I'm saying is that you have to be shamelessly asking questions and questions and questions, right? If I were to step back, I'm not, by the way, preaching or anything. I'm just saying, if I were to sell your product, I would say, okay, who are my stakeholders? Could be the CFO, CEO, CFO, could be the engineering leader, could be the talent acquisition leader, right? Now, each one of them, you need a separate story to tell them. Your product is the same. When you go to the CFO and say, Mr. CFO, if you assume that you're hiring 100 people in the next 1 quarter, you're probably going to spend maybe 2,000 hours of your internal engineering leader spending. So 2,000 hours multiplied by, let's say, 10,000 rupees.
Yeah.
That's your revenue realization you're missing out. My product can probably cut down your revenue loss, leakage. Now, any CFO would love to hear that story, and provided he can pack it up. Now, an engineering leader, what is his problem? His problem is that I'm focused on my deliverables. And most hiring managers say, I want people. And I've been an engineering leader as well in the past, right? So our thinking is that I want people, but I want people to just miraculously appear tomorrow morning in front of me. I don't want to spend time as a hiring manager to interview them. I just want them to appear, correct? But if somebody can come and tell me how I can make it happen, it's a different story. So the more you talk, the go-to-market strategy is always about identifying the stakeholders. And your stakeholder, if you think your product has one stakeholder, that's a fundamental mistake. Please don't do that. Multiple stakeholders, it's a question of how you weave the story to them. Because if you are not able to identify the story behind your platform, it will fail. The second part, most important thing is that be extremely passionate about what you're building, your solution. But when you're selling it, be completely dispassionate about what you're selling. Try to understand what does the customer want, period. Nothing else matters. You maybe have, see for example, if you were to look at you walk in a Michelin restaurant. I mean, Michelin is the highest rating in the world, right? Michelin restaurant, and they provide, let's say if you are in the US, if you ask anybody in the US, they would say Tennessee is the capital of steak, correct? But if I'm a vegetarian, does it have any relevance to me? Doesn't, right? So therefore, you need to kind of understand it's not about what you're selling, it's about what is the business problem the customer is facing today. And second is you have to always provide your solution a business problem that addresses today's problem, but also will address tomorrow's problem and the day after tomorrow's problem. Unless you are willing to ask question after question after question after question after, the more you mine the customer and you bombard them with questions, the better you can actually kind of play your solution to them. Those are my thoughts in terms of go-to-market. By no means am I saying it's easy. I've known the struggles, I've seen the challenges, I've walked the path that you guys are walking to, but that's, I do not know if there's any other easier path. That's the only path I've known to success.
Very well put, actually. In fact, you touched upon a couple of points. Both are, both are equally important. One of them is engaging all the stakeholders in the company, right? This is probably one of the things. Someone was asking HUL, yes, and nothing happened. It's probably because you are not selling to one person in that company. You have to sell to everybody.
We were not able to
Replicate the story.
Okay, great. So basically, there is what is known as account-based marketing (ABM), which is very similar to what Bipin is alluding to, where you have to touch upon every stakeholder, right from finance and accounts and VP of engineering, CTO, CFO, where you have to provide a value proposition which may be different for each persona. So unless you do that, you can't get into a large corporate. So that's one takeaway.
If you don't mind, Sashi, can I just take another 30 seconds? Another example. We are right now, my company right now, we are the world's largest SAP solution provider when it comes to tax and revenue management. We work with about 6 different countries in helping them to establish their tax and revenue management software, right? That is corporate income tax. The constant message I give to my people, including my sales people and delivery people, is that we are not selling a tax and revenue management SAP solution. What we're selling is that we are providing a solution so these corporate citizens of the country can file their tax returns easily and seamlessly. Filing the returns, asking for refunds, auditing, case management. The tax department officers, they have a solution where they can seamlessly audit, understand, accept the files, reject the filing, give refunds, whatever. But if you look at the ministry, like let's say the equivalent of Nirmala Sitharaman, finance, what do they want? They want tax collections, number one, as a country. Number two, they want tax collections on time. Number three, they want minimized leakages and fraud detection. Now, what does the Prime Minister of a country want? They want the system to implement a fashion which is very seamless, transparent, so their ranking in terms of IMF and World Bank and OECD becomes higher. So you have to think about a solution in terms of at what stage are you pitching it? If we go in the market and I tell my salespeople, if we constantly pitch it, we are a solution provider for SAP. There are probably, I don't know, maybe 5,000 SAP solution partners in the world, or maybe even more. Does it make sense? No. But if we pitch ourselves saying that this is what we bring to a table at different layers, then the message resonates far more powerfully. It's all about how do you create a message that resonates with the stakeholder. If you can do that well, then you're better placed for success. No guarantee, by the way, just better placed.
Very well said. So thank you very much. I think great inputs and great views, and I'm sure some of you or all of you will get benefited by that. I would like to encourage you to ask questions. If you don't have any questions, I will probably talk about whatever you guys said
technical solution provided by any organization or any startup or any of it? What are those three metrics?
No, there is always a pre-step, right? Everyone knows, right? There's a 5-year plan, 3-year plan, long-term roadmap, and all that established. So we have internally, and I can talk more about career. That's more relevant, right? So we have engineering, innovation is in the middle, strategy is the first pillar. So it all starts from strategy, right? So we, every year, we look at, hey, the strategic theme, what I talked about, what all we want to be doing in the next 3 years, and then what is it we exactly want to do in the next 1 year. That's how we look at. And then 5-year, 10-year is always in the radar, right? So when we look at the 3 years and then 1 year, right, that's when the discussion happens every year on a regular basis, like, hey, what is the ongoing programs we have, that's like purely engineering, what are all the innovation efforts we are having which aligns with that theme, and then what is it in those two we will be able to do, we are doing in-house, and which is on track or which is not on track. That will define the path for, hey, I think first step towards, hey, there is something which we are not able to do. There is always things we come to a conclusion that internally either it's going to take a longer time or we don't have the capability. That's when we start identifying, like, hey, this is something, let's look for partners. And then the second is looking at the 3-year and 5-year roadmap, right? That's where the active focus on, we have a separate, hubs, we call it as innovation hubs, looking at the startup ecosystem and, the other, incubation, ecosystems and all, looking at what are all the emerging, technologies, products and solutions, which is arising. So that comes in, like, hey, what is it, some of the things, which is at a, this year, like, our focus is Series B, which is at a mature stage, which can plug in the, beyond 1 year roadmap, we can pull in into the, first year itself. So that is how, the decision happens on which area, which solution, which technology will be able to, plug in solution from outside. That's where the investments and all are happening. 3 years before, we didn't have this kind of mature process. To be very honest, we were part of United Technologies. That was like heavily focused on aerospace and aviation. So now we have a much better disciplined process, and we are iterating and then improving as we move on. The second is, like, I'll go back to that. The same thing is, like, today, addressable market and those things we look at. Any corporate today, the focus is how do you offer a solution to the customer. Everybody has moved away from products, right? The marketing terminology which Vipin talked about, or even Jignesh talked about, that's applicable to corporates as well. The corporates are also rethinking and repositioning ourselves. We don't talk about air conditioner today. We talk about healthy air as a solution to the customers, right? Even from Carrier, right? So I think this shift has happened. So rest all products are solutions which has to integrate. It has to integrate, and then make it as a one solution. That's a one key criteria we evaluate when we look at outside, right? And startups, when you build the solution in the beginning, it may not be ready, because you don't have the visibility of, hey, what are the interfaces you need to build to connect with the Carrier system, not just the strategy. The other angle is also not available. But we look at, from the angle of, is the, startup at least willing to, offer that, what it takes to, make them integratable into our platform to offer it as a solution as well. So that is another factor we evaluate. We learn a lot through the process, because half of the startup, when we evaluate through a POC or a pilot, we figure out that their architecture could be in a state that it's not ready or scalable, and they had to go through a lot of changes. So then we drop it and then move to something else, right? All these kind of factors, but it will become a long process, at least 6 months to 9 months. That's where I'll, just one last point is I'll connect, Jignesh was talking about the mentoring, right? Not everybody can be mentored, but if you identify, but the mentoring plays a very crucial role. The early stage, the founders are designing a technology solution. How do you design it or architect it in such a way that it is scalable, and then looking at the domain or the market segment or the applications they're targeting, what all interfaces it has to have, or at least ready to be integratable easily when the need comes and all, right? That aspect, if it is like planned in the beginning itself, it plays a huge role when they are ready to scale up.
Aditya, in your opinion,
One second. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I just want to add different flavor to what Balaji said.
See, if you look at M&As, large corporates, fundamentally there are three principles. Why are you doing M&A? I want to get into a new region. I want a new customer, a new marketplace. Or I'm just looking at talent. There are some basic fundamentals to look at it. Now the second angle you also look at it is, so that's the M&A point of view. Now when you are looking at, right, you could look at from collaboration, going back some of the startup. One of the biggest challenges in the corporate world, startup world, is that not so much building a solution, selling a solution. At times, if I go back to one of the companies I worked in the past, called CA Technology, now it's part of Broadcom. At one point in time, we were 13,000 employees, about 12 years back. Only 4,000 were product engineering, only 4,000. 4,500 were sales and marketing team. Because of the kind of effort it takes. Now, flip it across and see, is it necessary, do you want to actually go to market on your own? Is it necessary? Not a necessary, right? If you look at us, we are a services company, like I said, system solution partner. What we've done is we've actually created certain IPs for ourselves. So today, if somebody comes into SAP's website and looks for something called as content financials, they can actually buy a content financial license, which is on SAP's portal, but it's owned by us. So therefore, the revenue comes back to Indian LSI. So therefore, if you start looking at what are the gaps? Now, SAP has been doing a lot of sort of acquisitions in the last few years, but they still have product gaps. Coming back, I'm going to pick you as an example once again, right? Now, you built a great solution in your mind. Now, if you were to take it to the market on your own, you may be successful, but it's going to take you a humongous amount of. Contrary, if you go talk to, let's say, Darrenbox, they're already $1 billion valuation out of Hyderabad. I think it's probably the first $1 billion valuation company out of Hyderabad startup, right? Is this an adjacency for them? The answer is absolutely yes. Do you think they'll ever get into this space? Probably not. So therefore, will they be open to? So you need to kind of understand, do you want to go to the market on your own? Or do you want to collaborate with a larger company where your solution will dovetail so smoothly and so nicely, they don't look at you as a competition at all. It will blend in very, very smoothly. And all large corporate does it, by the way. Yeah. Most large corporates are very happy, and over a period of time, see, initially, they may say, come along here and tag along with me, revenue share. And once you start gaining momentum, they'll acquire you.
Yeah,
which is also good, right?
That's what the warrant I talked about. I mean, so corporates are definitely interested in that.
But your path to success, I can definitely tell you, will probably multiply by 10x or 100x if you actually collaborate and piggyback on somebody who's already got the scale, as opposed to you going to the market on your own. Sorry, Aditya.
I think great points. In fact, I think Balaji and Vipin have kind of summarized.
So in your view, what are the top three?
The top three, I can speak for ServiceNow as a large corporate is, one is, does it align to our vision, which is like, make the world of work better, right? Second thing is, will it delight our customers, as you said, like, that's second thing that will. And third is, I think we've all reiterated, can it be organically blended into our organization with least effort? So that is very critical. I keep saying this. I know it is kind of a reiteration of the same thing, but that would be very critical when we are going to do an M&A kind of a thing. So I think those three things kind of encompasses pretty much, the customer, the stakeholders, and, everything that Vipin and Balaji have been saying. So those are three things.
Just to add one point, I think, that's a good point. I want to connect, to Vipin, the earlier discussion, right? We talked about the different personas in the company, when you market, right? It is also very important when you really, pitch in to a company, study about that company, their applications, and what do they do, and position your discussions or solutions or talking points around that, because that makes a huge difference. You may be having a wonderful solution, it's going to add, you may be having a proper fit into that company, adding a lot of revenue opportunity for the company. But if the talking point, selling point is not aligned with their product and domain and applications, it may not go well. There's a high chance of that it may fail.
So we need to do enough research into what the company is looking for, what are the value proposition.
Many times it's about identifying the champion inside.
Exactly.
Give them the pointers to sell it internally for them.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we used to discuss, right? I used to consider myself, hey, my job is to represent, for example, like companies like Jignesh inside Carrier, and then when I come this side, I talk about, hey, these are all the nitty-gritties you may have to look at, and you need to
that's a way to, and it's a way to not only get into an M&A but also to simply sell. It's the way you sell itself is that actually. You need to find a champion, Because you can't
You
sell
can
to
share the
everybody.
ingredients on both the sides, and that's the
Yes,
idea.
yeah.
And
Enterprise
also
sales is
use
all
the-
about that.
And one other point is maybe build on a similar platform like what they have already, or on their platform itself, because there are some
Exactly.
solutionings that the company would love to.
In fact, I think I see
You have
that
to make it
happening
as-
less in India, but I saw it in the Dreamforce event, Salesforce event. Salesforce, SAP, ServiceNow.
Yeah.
I think in the US, building only for ServiceNow, building only for Salesforce, big platform play.
That itself is a
platforms
huge
and
market.
large
It's a
Because
huge
they already have captured
marketplace.
it, piggybacking
Yeah,
it.
I mean, the market is global really,
Yeah.
and of course, but as you said, like building in a focused way, a particular, very strong solution, like not just a product, a cool solution on that platform, I think there is a good strategy and approach, and success also that I've seen.
Excellent. Any more
Multiple,
questions?
yeah.
So yeah, I think I'm sure that's a traditional play where, and I mean, all the startups and everyone has gone through that journey and learned their own lessons. Some definitely very important pointers that we got today. But is there a way by which you can increase that efficiency of just getting the right feedback? Of course, we'll ask that question and the responses will keep coming every month. But is there a way by which this collaboration can become more efficient? Because time is of essence for every startup. For sure, right? I mean, that's a do and die, live and die thing for them. So I think that's one of the points that I had. Or is there any way we can keep finding champions and we can keep finding, but is there a way?
It's all about networking and understanding of the customer, understanding of the company and their requirements.
Right.
See, it's also a lot of time in startup world, right? If you talk to any of the VCs, right, or even angel investors, one of the things they always say is that they look at this team, they don't look at the product.
Sure.
They look at the team first. Product is important, but team is important, right? And then they also look at who are advisors. And that can make a big difference. Quite a few startups actually, before they go for the Series A funding, would actually not just build a core team, but they also bring in the right advisors.
Right.
And because when you get the right advisors, see, when you look at advisors, again, a startup, you want advice in various places. One is someone from the finance guidance. Finance, compliance, raising money, due diligence, running your books, that's one part. You want somebody who is going to help you in terms of how do you create a solution itself. Because your solution needs to be built in a fashion which is scalable, right? Which is also kind of expandable. And today we're all talking about the cloud platforms, correct? So also, do you really need to build something from scratch? Or can you actually kind of leverage something which is already there, which is what Jignesh is talking about, right? Do you actually need to code it? Can you use low code, no code platforms? Quick to market. So that's another area of advisory. A third is, which domain am I looking at? Am I looking at finance? Am I looking at insurance? Am I looking at manufacturing, automobile? And in that segment, who is the advisor who can come and tell me what will fit in very well? Because that domain expert will tell you not only about the domain, but will also tell you what are the gaps in the current market.
And the narratives.
A lot of the time, when we build products or solutions rather, right, we just don't know what else is there in the market. I'm being very, very brutally honest with you people. Because I done the same mistake when I was on the payroll. We fall in love so much, we don't even know what else is there in the market. We don't do enough research as to what is there. That's where the advisors play a lot of, huge. And in fact, one of the things that Sesha and I would talk earlier is that, see, HiCR today has pretty much almost every large IT company and every small IT company in Hyderabad is a part of the HiCR members. So therefore, one of the things that we are discussing internally is that, how do we kind of create some kind of a matchmaking process? I mean, just to pick a name, right, a good friend of mine, who's at a very senior level in Infosys, a gentleman called Nari. He's a EVP out there. He now heads the entire global cloud infrastructure platform for Infosys, which is itself a multi-billion-dollar business unit for it. Now, if somebody is actually building a SaaS product, having a couple of hours with Nari once in a month could make a world of difference. Now, there is no way you're going to kind of do that level of understand research from anywhere in the world on your own. Correct? So that's a model we're looking at, we're exploring to figure out, can that be brought together so the startup entrepreneurs can actually accelerate their learning and accelerate their go-to-market. That's where some of the established corporate leaders, if you look at Infosys, if you look at Wipro, if you look at TechM, there are so many business leaders out there and technology leaders out there who've been there, done that. Right? Like Aditya was talking about in ServiceNow, he's been doing the product engineering for so long. Now, if he's going to spend a couple of hours every month with, let's say, one or two startups about how are they doing their product design itself, it could make a huge difference for that startup.
Very good. Any more questions?
I have one question. In fact, I would like to tell a scenario that we experienced recently. So I worked a lot with Marvel and Marvel Semiconductors and Freescale Semiconductors, and basically I traveled outside India a lot, and I understand that partnerships are very important. So I took the same learnings to startup here today, and this time I have not talked to any outside people, but within the Indian ecosystem, Thousand Box is one of them. Most of the times these people basically say that you can come after 2 years, if you survive, then we'll talk. So we have completed 2 years now.
Yeah. Time to go
So
back.
I'm planning to go back and say, hey, I survived. but, but I went to, just like 6 months ago, I went to what is this called, Bullhorn, which is a US platform. That guy called me around 10 o'clock in the night. Within the next 2 days, he said, hey, this is the agreement, come on to the platform and start integrating. He gave a sandbox. I think by Friday we had the sandbox access, and then we were ready with the proof of concept.
Yeah.
So why is that somebody says, hey, come after 2 years, versus, the American company says, hey, you can do it within a week or so. So do you think some kind of things can be done?
See, it is cultural, and also it's a more of a legacy issue, right? See, the Indian ecosystem at this point of time is still not mature.
Okay.
Number one, right? Number two is that as Indians, which all of us are, right? We have this problem in our mindset. Subconsciously, I can build it, no? Why should I
Exactly,
collaborate
that's
with
one
you?
problem.
So every time you hear about a good solution, say, अरे 3 महीने में 4 लोगों को लगा दूंगा हो जाएगा.
Huh?
Yeah.
This is a standard question.
But the
again. How
point
many
is,
people
you don't
are there?
realize that's not my core. I mean, going back to one of the companies I was working with, CA Technologies, right? In a CA Technologies in the lifetime before it got acquired by Broadcom, actually used to buy a company every 1 month, one company every 1 month. In a 30 years history of CA, 1976 onwards, by about 2012 or something, we actually bought about 330 companies in 30 years history, and then divested about 100 business units. Why is it happen? Does it happen to the Indian company? The answer is no. Because the mindset is very different. From a US point of view or even European point of view, what happened, the maturity is very different. For them, it's all about revenue, go to market, and how quickly I can get to the market. If I can actually bring in 3 people to collaborate with me and merge them in, even as a technology platform, and go forward, perfectly fine. Like I was telling SAP, right? Now, SAP is a multi-billion-dollar company. My company is a small $100 million services company, right? Why should they actually allow my IP to be listed on their website? They can say, who the hell are these guys building? I can do it. Right? I'm building a whole ERP.
Yes.
What's the big deal for me to build a content financial IP?
Yes.
But they don't think that way. They say, yeah, it's okay. It's not my core, right? It's a niche. And if they're going to make some more revenue out there, it's still marrying with SAP platform. Good. ServiceNow is the same, right? All Salesforce, if you look at it, right, the number of adjacent plugins that Salesforce allows is just humongous. Because for them, they don't look at it as eating of the market. They look at saying that if there are more plugins that are coming to my platform is going to become richer. So therefore, my revenue is anyway going to multiply.
Exactly.
It's a mindset difference.
So just like
Very big difference.
I mean, the concept is very similar to a smartphone versus lots of apps that run on it. So the platform is the same.
So we had
So-
initially 2 pages on our platform, just 2 pages to deploy the solution. Now because we didn't get support, we had to add like a lot of features now to have the entire life cycle.
So we'll take a quick segue here. We passed the hour, it's already 4. So I would like to speak, thank you all for all your inputs. I'm hoping that you all got benefited by that. And so whatever the industry stalwarts have said, if you have to translate that into some actions, most of the things, the summarize, I mean, networking, whatever you said is networking is required. The CXO connects, the leadership trainings, and whatever Vipin has alluded to, and whatever Balaji and Jignesh have talked about, they all point to primarily one thing: you need to identify opportunities, right? In addition to understanding the customer and total addressable market, all. So how do you get all these things in one place in an easy manner? That's one major value proposition for HICIA, which is we want to grow the IT industry. When all of you are grow, the industry will grow together. So I'll talk a little bit about HICIA, what it is, and so actually this is an association. There are many associations, but HICIA is specifically for the state of Telangana and for the companies that are based in Telangana. And this was started with some visionaries in 1991, 30 years ago, when Y2K problem didn't exist, right? Those are the visionaries at that time. So it's a 30-year-old organization, and it is a not-for-profit, no profit motivation. We have more than 300 members, and it's a large mix of large, medium, and small organizations. This, the big the big deal here is all these people, they're all volunteers. You know, whether it is Aditya, Balaji, Bipin, Jignesh, they're all volunteers. They are trying to give something back to the industry with no self-gain in their minds. So they all have full-time jobs, they're all running their operations, and still they want to make the industry better. Because we all have grown in that industry, so we all feel that we owe that back to the industry. So basically, HISEA brings all the members, organizations, your companies, large companies, medium companies, small companies, together and provide a platform. This is a partial list of HISEA members. All the big names, marquee names, they're all here. And the product companies, the services companies, the small, medium companies and startups. So this is a very small list of the 300 plus companies that are our members. The advantage of this is you will get to network with all these companies as a HISEA member. And why? It will provide a communication platform to you. And specific focus is on small companies, because today's small companies are tomorrow's large companies. So we focus on the small companies. And we help with the CXO Connects, we help interact with the state and central governments for any of the issues that you may have. We won't do it by specifically solving your specific problem, but we will take feedback from all the companies. When it's a problem for many companies together, then we take it as an industry problem. So we have access to IS officers, Jayesh Ranjan, and IT Minister KTR and all through all these contacts. And we collaborate with universities, research projects. If you have a problem that you are really trying to resolve, then you can say that, hey, do you know somebody who can solve this for me? So we work with IIIT, we work with IIT, we work with many other organizations as well. So hopefully you will find some solution for your problem. And it's not only the CEOs or the founders that have access, but the employees of your organizations also can interact with the rest of the member organizations' employees. So that way, that networking will be fulfilling for not only business but also for technologies. So we have several programs, the SME mixers. So this provides specific business opportunities for you, because we bring the large companies, the small companies. Here you have seen only 2 large companies, but when we in an SME mixer, you will see lots of them. So you can interact and you can exchange contacts and develop relations with them. And in the SME mixers, it's not only the IT companies. We also bring the domain-specific companies that are not HISEA members. For example, pharma companies, real estate companies. All those other domain-related companies will come. For their IT needs, they might need your solution. So that's a SME mixer. And Catalyst is a startup features, investor connects. Catalyst is another series of programs that we have where you can pitch your product and you can find mentors and potential investors. And we conduct several hiring events, job fairs, hackathons, internships, HR connects, and so on, so that you may or may not be able to hire full-time employees. You may be able to get some 6 months internship. Students, bright students, you can hire them in these events. And we have several. This is what Bipin was talking about: the knowledge series, the technology series, the leadership development series that are primarily for your own skill development. And CXO roundtables, we talked about that. And somebody was asking, what is my total addressable market? How do I know? So we provide some reports on industry trends, technology trends. We work with Zinnov, we work with EY and KPMG. So there are several partnerships that we have. So we get access to these. You get access to these reports. And we have a member directory. You can go on our website, and this is under construction. You can go on our website and look at all the 300 members' profiles, and you can probably try to get connects with them. So basically, we orchestrate this whole journey by aligning everything and bring all the companies under one platform for the betterment of the overall IT industry. So that's what I see is all about. So if any of you are interested in taking a membership, feel free to let us know. I can give you my cards, and we can also probably waive off some fee and offer some discounts as well if you join soon.
No, it's a very simple fee for startups. So it doesn't burn your pocket.
Yeah.
Very, very small fee.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for your time spent here, and I hope you enjoyed the session, and feel free to get in touch with us. Okay. And my sincere thanks to the speakers. Balaji, thank you so much. Aditya, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. And Vignesh, thank you. And Vipin looks like just stepped out. Thanks. Oh, okay. No.
Great, sir. Let's do our own mixes.
We are fixing all the internal stuff first. Yes, that's right.
Sir, can we take some picture?
Yeah, yeah.
Let's take a picture.
Yeah, yeah.
So, since there is a context, I just want to tell you, there is one catalyst event that we are planning exclusively to showcase startups. It's going to be a platform which is going to bring in large companies, and they are going to very briefly talk about the opportunities they have on board. And we are going to give a platform to the startups who could pitch their proposals. That is where your sanitation happens, like Vipin was asking. Ask yourself the questions. Those critical questions are the ones that panel is going to be asking. And in the discussion, you might even find a solution. And you might even find a partner. So what I'm saying is, this is coming up in November 1st week. We'll have the campaigns very soon start, but it's a good opportunity. There are going to be stalwarts. I think it's still in the process, but when you sign up for it, you will know the names. But we are talking to people who are passionate and who want to see the Hyderabad ecosystem strive actually.
Any sector focus that you want to emphasize?
Yes, we are looking at fintech at this point of time. Yeah, group picture.
Where?
Yeah.
So can we have the ICA logo on the back?
Yeah.